What a beautiful evening. I love this view. It's so peaceful here, don't you think? How are you doing today? I'd really enjoy reading a couple more stories to you. If you're in the mood, we can just relax together for a bit. I've grabbed 2 more from my Peter Rabbit library. This beautiful little collection of Beatrix Potter stories. So I thought I could start with these illustrations. Really are gorgeous. The Tale of the Flopsy Bunnies. You really can't beat actually reading from a proper paper book. I know it sounds kind of silly, but so much is online nowadays. Everything on a computer, on a phone, on a tablet, on a Kindle. For me, you just can't beat the actual thing. It's a lovely experience. So tactile. I enjoy the sounds. Feels like I'm really experiencing what I'm reading. So lovely. It's easy to take these things for granted. It is said that the effect of eating too much lettuce is soporific. I have never felt sleepy after eating lettuces, but then I am not a rabbit. They certainly had a very soporific effect on the Flopsy Bunnies. When Benjamin Bunny grew up, he married his cousin Flopsy. They had a large family, and they were very improvident and cheerful. I do not remember the separate names of their children. They were generally called the Flopsy Bunnies. As there was not always quite enough to eat, Benjamin used to borrow cabbages from Flopsy's brother, Peter Rabbit, who kept a nursery garden. Sometimes Peter Rabbit had no cabbages to spare. When this happened, the Flopsy Bunnies went across the field to a rubbish heap in the ditch outside Mr. McGregor's garden. Mr. McGregor's rubbish heap was a mixture. There were jam pots and paper bags and mountains of chopped grass from the mowing machine, which always tasted oily, and some rotten vegetable marrows and an old boot or two. One day, oh joy, there were a quantity of overgrown lettuces which had shot into flower. The Flopsy Bunnies simply stuffed lettuces. By degrees, one after another, they were overcome with slumber and lay down in the mown grass. Benjamin was not so much overcome as his children. before going to sleep, he was sufficiently wide awake to put a paper bag over his head to keep off the flies. The little Flopsy bunnies slept delightfully in the warm sun. From the lawn beyond the garden came the distant clackety sound of the mowing machine. The blue bottles buzzed about the wall, and a little old mouse picked over the rubbish among the jam pots. I can tell you her name. She was called Thomasina Tittlemaus, a wood mouse with a long tail. She rustled across the paper bag and awakened Benjamin Bunny. The mouse apologized profusely and said that she knew Peter Rabbit. While she and Benjamin were talking, close under the wall, they heard a heavy tread above their heads. And suddenly, Mr. McGregor emptied out a sackful of lawn mowings right upon the top of the sleeping Flopsy bunnies. Benjamin shrank down under his paper bag. The mouse hid in a jam pot. The little rabbits smiled sweetly in their sleep under the shower of grass. They did not awake because the lettuces had been so soporific. They dreamt that their mother Flopsy was tucking them up in a hay bed. Mr. McGregor looked down after emptying his sack. He saw some funny little brown tips of ears sticking up through the lawn mowings. He stared at them for some time. Presently, a fly settled on one of them, and it moved. Mr. McGregor climbed down onto the rubbish heap. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little rabbits, said he as he dropped them into his sack. The Flopsy bunnies dreamt that their mother was turning them over in bed. They stirred a little in their sleep, but they still did not wake up. Mr. McGregor tied up the sack and left it on the wall. He went to put away the mowing machine. While he was gone, Mrs. Flopsy Bunny, who had remained at home, came across the field. She looked suspiciously at the sack and wondered where everybody was. Then the mouse came out of her jam pot, and Benjamin took the paper bag off his head, and they told the doleful tale. Benjamin and Flopsy were in despair. They could not undo the string. But Mrs. Tittlemaus was a resourceful person. She nibbled a hole in the bottom corner of the sack. The little rabbits were pulled out and pinched to wake them. Their parents stuffed the empty sack with 3 rotten vegetable marrows, an old blacking brush, and 2 decayed turnips. Then they all hid under a bush and watched for Mr. McGregor. Mr. McGregor came back and picked up the sack and carried it off. He carried it hanging down as if it were rather heavy. The Flopsy bunnies followed at a safe distance. They watched him go into his house. and then they crept up to the window to listen. Mr. McGregor threw down the sack on the stone floor in a way that would have been extremely painful to the Flopsy Bunnies, if they had happened to have been inside it. They could hear him drag his chair on the flags and chuckle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little rabbits, said Mr. McGregor. What's that? What have they been spoiling now? Inquired Mrs. McGregor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little fat rabbits, repeated Mr. McGregor, counting on his fingers. 1, 2, 3. Don't you be silly. What do you mean, you silly old man? In the sack. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, replied Mr. McGregor. The youngest Flopsy Bunny got upon the windowsill. Mrs. McGregor took hold of the sack and felt it. She said she could feel 6, but they must be old rabbits, because they were so hard and all different shapes. Not fit to eat, but the skins will do fine to line my old cloak. Line your old cloak? Shouted Mr. McGregor. I shall sell them and buy myself baccy. Rabbit tobacco? I shall skin them and cut off their heads. Mrs. McGregor untied the sack and put her hand inside. When she felt the vegetables, she became very, very angry. She said that Mr. McGregor had done it a purpose. And Mr. McGregor was very angry too. One of the rotten marrows came flying through the kitchen window and hit the youngest Flopsy Bunny. It was rather hurt. Then Benjamin and Flopsy thought it was time to go home. So, Mr. McGregor did not get his tobacco, and Mrs. McGregor did not get her rabbit skins. But next Christmas, Thomasina Tittlemaus got a present of enough rabbit wool to make herself a cloak and a hood and a handsome muff and a pair of warm mittens. So cute. The McGregors are a little bit scary, aren't they? I was anxious when the smallest of the Flopsy Bunnies got onto the windowsill. I thought for a second that one of the McGregors was going to spot the little bunny. But fortunately, they only got hit by a flying rotten marrow, and I'm sure they'll come to. They'll be alright. That was a close shave, though. These little bunnies really don't learn their lesson, do they? Just stop messing with Mr. McGregor's garden. But I guess this is what wild animals have got to do, haven't they? They've got to be resourceful. Got to find things to eat and to survive. Little Peter Rabbit, bless him. He's got his little nursery garden growing his own vegetables now so that he doesn't have to go back to Mr. McGregor's garden and undergo the trauma that he experienced the first time. Benjamin, though, like his father, is pretty tenacious. And he's managed to bag Peter Rabbit's cousin Flopsy. A lovely little bit of storytelling from Beatrix Potter. I will move on to the second story. The Tale of Mrs. Tiggy-Winkle. Once upon a time, there was a little girl called Lucy, who lived at a farm called Littletown. She was a good little girl, only she was always losing her pocket handkerchiefs. One day, little Lucy came into the farmyard crying. Oh, she did cry so. "I've lost my pocket hankin. 3 hankins and a penny. Have you seen them, Tabby Kitten?" The kitten went on washing her white paws. So Lucy asked a speckled hen, "Sally Hennypenny, have you found 3 pocket hankins?" But the speckled hen ran into a barn, clucking, "I go barefoot, barefoot, barefoot." And then Lucy asked Cock Robin, sitting on a twig. Cock Robin looked sideways at Lucy, with his bright black eye, and he flew over a stile and away. Lucy climbed upon the stile and looked up at the hill behind Littletown, a hill that goes up, up into the clouds, as though it had no top. And a great way up the hillside, she thought she saw some white things spread upon the grass. Lucy scrambled up the hill as fast as her stout legs would carry her. She ran along a steep pathway, up and up, until Littletown was right away down below. She could have dropped a pebble down the chimney. Presently she came to a spring, bubbling out from the hillside. Someone had stood a tin can upon a stone to catch the water, but the water was already running over, for the can was no bigger than an egg cup. And where the sand upon the path was wet, there were footmarks of a very small person. Lucy ran on and on. The path ended under a big rock. The grass was short and green, and there were clothes props cut from bracken stems, with lines of plaited rushes, and a heap of tiny clothespins, but no pocket handkerchiefs. But there was something else. A door, straight into the hill. And inside it, someone was singing. "Lily white and clean, oh, with little frills between, oh, smooth and hot, red rusty spot, never here be seen, oh." Lucy knocked, once, twice, and interrupted the song. A little frightened voice called out,
"Who's that?"
Lucy opened the door. What do you think there was inside the hill? A nice, clean kitchen with a flagged floor and wooden beams, just like any other farm kitchen. Only the ceiling was so low that Lucy's head nearly touched it, and the pots and pans were small, and so was everything there. There was a nice, hot, singy smell, and at the table, with an iron in her hand, stood a very stout, short person, staring anxiously at Lucy. Her print gown was tucked up, and she was wearing a large apron over her striped petticoat. Her little black nose went sniffle, sniffle, snuffle, and her eyes went twinkle, twinkle. And underneath her cap, where Lucy had yellow curls, that little person had prickles.
"Who are you?"
said Lucy.
"Have you seen my pocket hankins?"
The little person made a bob curtsy.
"Oh, yes, if you please. My name is Mrs. Tiggy-Winkle. Oh, yes, if you please. I'm an excellent clear stature."
And she took something out of a clothes basket and spread it on the ironing blanket.
"What's that thing?"
said Lucy.
"That's not my pocket hankin." "Oh, no, if you please. That's a little scarlet waistcoat belonging to Cock Robin."
And she ironed it and folded it and put it on one side. Then she took something else off a clothes horse.
"That isn't my pinny,"
said Lucy.
"Oh, no, if you please. That's a damask tablecloth belonging to Jenny Wren. Look how it's stained with currant wine. It's very bad to wash,"
said Mrs. Tiggy-Winkle. Mrs. Tiggy-Winkle's nose went sniffle, sniffle, snuffle, and her eyes went twinkle, twinkle, and she fetched another hot iron from the fire.
"There's one of my pocket hankins,"
cried Lucy.
"and there's my pinny."
Mrs. Tiggy-Winkle ironed it and goffered it and shook out the frills.
"Oh, that is lovely,"
said Lucy.
"And what are those long yellow things with fingers like gloves?" "Oh, that's a pair of stockings belonging to Sally Hennypenny. Look how she's worn the heels out with scratching in the yard. She'll very soon go barefoot,"
said Mrs. Tiggy-Winkle.
"Why, there's another hanker-sniff. But it isn't mine. It's red. Oh, no, if you please. That one belongs to old Mrs. Rabbit. And it did so smell of onions. I've had to wash it separately. I can't get out the smell." "There's another one of mine,"
said Lucy.
"What are those funny little white things?" "That's a pair of mittens belonging to Tabby Kitten. I only have to iron them. She washes them herself." "There's my last pocket hankin,"
said Lucy.
"And what are you dipping into the basin of starch?" They're little dicky shirt fronts belonging to Tom Titmouse. Most terrible particular, said Mrs. Tiggy-Winkle. Now I've finished my ironing, I'm going to air some clothes. What are these dear, soft, fluffy things? Said Lucy. Oh, those are woolly coats belonging to little lambs at Skelgill. Will their jackets take off? Asked Lucy. Oh yes, if you please, look at the sheep mark on the shoulder. And here's one marked for Kate's Garth, and 3 that come from Littletown. They're always marked at washing, said Mrs. Tiggy-Winkle. And she hung up all sorts and sizes of clothes. Small brown coats of mice, and one velvety black moleskin waistcoat, and a red tail coat with no tail, belonging to Squirrel Nutkin, and a very much shrunk blue jacket, belonging to Peter Rabbit, and a petticoat, not marked, that had gone lost in the washing. And at last, the basket was empty. Then Mrs. Tiggy-Winkle made tea, a cup for herself and a cup for Lucy. They sat before the fire on a bench and looked sideways at one another. Mrs. Tiggy-Winkle's hand, holding the teacup, was very, very brown, and very, very wrinkly with the soap suds. And all through her gown and her cap there were hairpins sticking wrong end out, so that Lucy didn't like to sit too near her. When they had finished tea, they tied up the clothes in bundles, and Lucy's pocket handkerchiefs were folded up inside her clean pinny and fastened with a silver safety pin. And then they made up the fire with turf, and came out and locked the door, and hid the key under the door sill. And away down the hill trotted Lucy and Mrs. Tiggy-Winkle with the bundles of clothes. All the way down the path, little animals came out of the fern to meet them. The very first that they met were Peter Rabbit and Benjamin Bunny, and she gave them their nice clean clothes. And all the little animals and birds were so very much obliged to dear Mrs. Tiggy-Winkle, so that at the bottom of the hill, when they came to the stile, there was nothing left to carry except Lucy's one little bundle. Lucy scrambled up the stile with the bundle in her hand, and then she turned to say good night, and to thank the washerwoman. But what a very odd thing! Mrs. Tiggy-Winkle had not waited either for thanks or for the washing bill. She was running up the hill. And where was her white frilled cap, and her shawl, and her gown, and her petticoat? And how small she had grown, and how brown, and covered with prickles. Why, Mrs. Tiggy-Winkle was nothing but a hedgehog. Now some people say
that little Lucy had been asleep upon the stile. But then how could she have found 3 clean pocket hankins and a pinny, pinned with a silver safety pin? And besides, I have seen that door into the back of the hill, called Cat Bells. And besides, I am very well acquainted with dear Mrs. Tiggy-Winkle. And that brings us to the end of another beautiful little Beatrix Potter tale. I've still got quite a few more in this collection. I've been handpicking which ones that I'd like to read and which ones I'd like to pair with another, but remaining we have The Tale of Squirrel Nutkin. Squirrel Nutkin was obviously mentioned in this last one. The Tailor of Gloucester. The Tale of Mr. Jeremy Fisher. And The Tale of Tom Kitten. So, if there's one of those that you would particularly like to hear, do let me know. But if you can find more time to relax with me, I'm sure I will be able to just keep working through them all. And then make a little compilation of them, so I can share them all together sometime. Thank you so much for being here and just taking this little time out of your day to relax with these stories and these sounds and this view. I'm sure it will have done you some good. You take care now. Read to you soon.